In this video, we are going to learn how to do our own tissue paper, printed tissue paper that you might want to use on a mixed media tag or in a mixed media journal or in other craft projects. It's really very simple. We're going to start with a plain white piece of tissue paper. You can use different colors, but I went with white, obviously, because it's going to show up best in this video. And I like the white, the black and white or a sepia and white look anyways. And then if you want to age it, I use my distress inks. But I am going to cut this so that it is 12 inches high. Some people might want to cut it 12 by 12 if you're working on a 12 by 12 project. I am actually going to put it in an art journal, so I'm going to keep it so that it opens like a book. I'm just going to measure it and make sure it's not too big, which will make it hard to work with. I want it to make it easy to work with for this video. And then I am going to place it on my non-stick craft mat by Ranger. And I'm going to place it there, and then I'm going to get together my stamps. Now when you're choosing stamps, you want something that is going to give a nice visual interest background, and your print stamps are some of your best choices. You will see here I have a set by Stampers Anonymous called Reflections by Tim Holtz. Tim Holtz is one of my favorites, and he created them so that they are backwards. As you can see, those numbers are printed backwards. He did it and has shown in different places where he has imprinted them on a background stamp so that you could have maybe chevron background, and then it looks like the words are in there as well, which is a really cool effect. Look that up on YouTube if you haven't seen that particular technique. But I like it because I like to stamp on the back side of my tissue paper, because sometimes I use distress ink, which of course reacts with water. And if I printed it on the front side, then it's going to run when I put different medium on it. Now you'll see today that I was using the archival jet black ink pad. That will not run. I could have stamped these on the front of the tissue paper and then applied my mediums or whatever I wanted to apply, but I have just gotten to the point where I love these reflection stamps, and if I stamp them on the back of the tissue paper, when I flip it to use it, it's then the right way and you can actually read what's going on. So I'm just going to place these stamps in different places around my paper. I'm just going to stagger them. As you can see, I left some space between the two stamps, and I've done that on purpose so that I can put some more visual elements in between the two. You'll also notice that I tend to rotate the stamps. We want to make sure that we keep it looking a little bit different, and since we don't have a ton of stamps to work with, or anyways I don't, so that I can't fill the whole piece of paper with totally different stamps, I'm going to move them around a little bit, change them up to give my tissue paper a little bit more visual interest. You'll also see me in a moment, I will ink up my stamp and I will take it off to the side of the tissue paper so that it still looks like it's come off a roll. I just kind of like that look, that off the side of the paper look. You'll also notice that I'm not particularly fussy about whether I'm getting a complete crisp stamp or not. Again, we are not going to be so fussy with this because it is a background. A lot of it's going to get covered up with paint and elements in my mixed media art journal. So I just want to have basic elements. Now this is the third stamp in that set, and it is the script one, and you'll notice that I'm placing this one closer to the first one. I don't want as much space between them. Again, this is just to mix it up since I'm still using the number stamp, or actually I think I'm using the dictionary stamp and the script stamp. So I want to mix it up a little bit. These two are going to be closer together, and I'm going to continue to stamp around the paper with them. You will have noticed me cleaning my stamp before I put it away. I simply use a baby wipe. And as you see, I took the second stamp off, and now I'm fitting this one in different places, turning it, switching it around, just to get a different look. Now this is a Darcy stamp, and it is the chicken wire stamp, and it's a background stamp. I really like the look of it. I'm going to use this in certain places. In some cases I'm going to layer it right over some of the print. In other cases I'm going to let it be a second stamp, so that means that it's going to come out a lot lighter. So I'm just going to ink her up and start stamping. Now you notice that I almost turned that a little bit so that it looked more like diamonds and was a little bit different. I just wasn't going for that look this time, but you could do that as well. Kind of rotate it around and stamp it at a diagonal, and it would give you a different look. Now I'm going to start adding a few stamps that are really going to pop, not only on this side of the page, but when we reverse it, they're really going to be a little more solid and really have that pop. If you've ever seen Tim Holtz's tissue paper, it has butterflies and stuff on it for pop elements with the text. So I'm starting out right now. This one that I'm going to use is a clock, and it is off from one of Tim Holtz's stamp sets that I really enjoy using, and it's just a little clock, and I'm going to stamp that around the paper a few times. Now I'm using some number stamps, and sadly I did not keep the packaging on these stamps. I know that I bought them at Michael's not too long ago, and I didn't keep the packaging, which is sad. So I don't even know the name of the company that produces these, but they are some grungy looking numbers, and I have Tim Holtz's grunge alphabet set, and these just seem to coordinate with it so well. So as you see, I'm putting this on, and I'm kind of putting it on backwards, and I'm going to pick them up, and I'm going to stamp these numbers on here. And as you'll notice, I ink this up, and when I stamp these, they really, because they're a more solid stamp, it's really going to look dark and actually kind of crisp, even though they're grungy numbers, and really pop. And this is what I'm talking about. You're going to want some stamps like this to go in with your script stamps and your background stamps. Something that's a little more solid, that's going to have a little more pop when you flip that page over, when you use it as your background, depending on how you do yours. Now as you notice, I'm just kind of taking some of my stamps and trying to figure out what I want to do, what I want to put in different places. That was a hashtag. I didn't end up going with the hashtag. I found a star on those grunge numbers, and I decided to pop that around the page a little bit. These are some little keys. If I'm not mistaken, these were from a dollar bin at one of the craft stores. And now I'm using a Fisker stamp, and it was meant to go on some sort of a roller system that they had. It was in a clearance bin, and I love the postage theme, and so I grabbed it and picked it up, and it works just fine on my acrylic block. Now this one is not reversed, so it's going to be backwards when I flip this over, but because of the type of stamp that, the type of stamp that it is with the postage marks, it actually is going to look just fine. It's not going to look really odd, and that's another thing that you take into account if you're stamping on the back side. Make sure that you choose stamps that aren't going to look really odd reversed if you don't want that look. Now sometimes I don't even pay attention because I really don't care if it looks mirrored, but it's all in preference and how you're going to use that. So keep that in mind if you're stamping on the back side the way I am in this one. Of course, if you're stamping on the front side with the archival ink, you really don't have to worry because it's going to look just the way that you stamp it. I got some really great deals on a lot of these stamps at the local craft stores. Some of the more expensive stamps I used coupons to get, and you can find out more about local craft store coupons at theartfulgeekgirl.com. I do a blog post on them every week. You'll notice that that was a wooden stamp, and that was definitely a Michael's clearance bin stamp that I got for less than $1. Now, again, this one is not a reverse stamp, but it's a stamp that's going to look just fine when I flip this over. And I love I love how it really pops and has such a cool look with the chevrons in it and everything. So as you can see, when I flip that over, I can look and see where there are holes, where I might want some more elements, and I did. When I flipped it over, I decided that I definitely needed more elements. So I chose a music staff stamp, and it's wooden mounted. And again, this was another one of the Michael's dollar clearance bin ones. I got just a few weeks ago when I went and got a bunch of Christmas ones. So this was a $1 stamp, and I think it's lovely, and I love it as a border, and I love it to be able to fill in like this. I didn't even care if I was lining them up exactly. I just wanted to fill it in there, and I'm going to fill it in lots of different places here. Wherever I felt that there was a hole that needed to be filled, I took my musical staff and I popped it in there. Now again, I used Ranger's Archival ink here, but since I'm doing it on the flip side of this tissue paper, I could have used distress ink or an ink that would react with water, because when I use it, I'm going to flip it just like this so that it's on this side, and that would keep it from interacting with any medium that I might be adding to this page. Now I've got it to the point where I like the way that it is. Now you can see here, that was a canvas that I did with Tim Holtz paper. So it has kind of a similar look, and it definitely, DIY, took me maybe 10 or 15 minutes to do, and I have it. So you can see that I used the same thing on this tag that I made for Autumn. That is my own background tissue paper that I used. And it's just as simple as that, to make your own background tissue paper. It's kind of addictive. Have fun.